Going on, you guys? I'm uh I'm AJ. I know you guys have saw my last video. I kind of did a little bit of introduction about who I was and all of the little things that, or some of the little things that I do. But I wanted to give you just a little background about truly of who I am. You know, where I came from, what things I've went through. Pretty much just going into the little deeper dive into who I am and why I do the things that I do. What's going to be the purpose of this? Why is this even important at all? Why should you even listen to this at all? Um, Giving you my whys of really deeping or diving into my deeper reasoning. Of course, you can always talk about of wanting to lose weight and wanting to feel better, but there's always a factor that dives a little bit deeper. So I hope you guys enjoy the fireplace and the nice cozy weather. I hope you guys enjoy the nice warm aesthetic. That's the type of guy that I am. So I want to make sure you feel the same presence. So a little bit of rundown. I'm originally from California. Lived out there for 4 years. So some people tell me, you're not from there because you were only there for 4 years. But whatever you want to say. I was born there. Raised out in Frisco, Texas. If anyone is from there watching this, shout out to y'all. But played football at Wakeland High School. Played there for 4 years. Going from my freshman to senior year. Throughout that time was a journey. This is when a lot of things really started to change. This is when things started to take off for my career, and this is when things started to almost downfall of my career as well. Um, but to even go prior than that, was always involved in athletics since I was little. Was playing sports since I was 4 years old. So I was always involved in sports in general. Um, in middle school, was playing basketball, was running suicides, and I know they changed the name just due to the name of it. I don't remember if what they call it though now. But I know when we were there, it was suicides, and I was running suicides and ended up like making a wrong move and planting my leg wrong, and foot got stuck or something on the cord, and my knee popped. Ended up tearing my meniscus in my right knee, so I was out. That was my first surgery going through middle school. Probably sixth or seventh grade when that happened. My first actual surgery, and then that was the beginning. Fast forward now into high school, going into my sophomore year, I was got promoted. I felt like a big dog. Got up to varsity for the football team. Even though I was a small guy, I was a little guy at that time, real skinny, maybe about a buck 70. But I was lengthy though. I was still about 6'1", maybe 6 feet. So I was tall for my age. Um, got into that. Loved the team. Great team. First team to get to like the third round of the playoffs. Um, I was one of the people that got us to the next round with a game-winning interception. Like I still have all the clips up, and there's still moments of. And I know my athletes do it too. Still go back and watch our huddle. Still go back and watch our old film and highlight tapes. Uh, it's just it's a memory that you can never pass that up, and it's an amazing thing to always go back to it and watch it. But it's like, man, I low key kind of miss it, and I feel like a lot of people miss those high school days sometimes too. Um, but during that year, I had ended up tearing my labrum in my shoulder, but just kind of kept playing with it. It wasn't too much of a bother, but kept it going until the end of the season. Till I got my surgery at the beginning, pretty much the beginning of my junior year, like right at the end of my sophomore year. Get into my junior year, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like a big timer. Uh, get to that point, and practices are going amazing. Things are just going so smooth throughout the beginning of the semester. And then we get into the very first game. We play Liberty High School. And if you are from Frisco, Texas, you know that Liberty High School is one of the worst teams that was in the district at the time, and ended up going through the first game, getting through just the first quarter, right before halftime. I ended up being on kick return. My foot planted into the ground, and my knee kind of just like folded on me, and kind of just kept trying to play with it, but things didn't go as planned. My knee kept folding on me as I kept walking. So I ran off to the field or walked off or limped off, jumped off, whatever you want to call it. I got to the sideline, talked to my trainers, and they're like, I was like, I felt like a strong pain, like a strong pull at the bottom of my foot, and I don't know what's going on. And they're like, oh, no worries. Like, you just cramped. Like, you'll be okay. It happens. You just need to hydrate. We'll ice it. You get back. I'm like, cool. I'm set. I'm all right. I'm cool. And I'm sitting there. I'm waiting. Maybe like 5 minutes, and my knee had to swell. Like, I mean, now I wish it was an exaggeration. Like, that's probably about the size of my knee. And they're like, yeah, AJ, there's probably something wrong. And I was like, well, I was telling y'all that at the very beginning, but let's do it now. Let's do the test. And for those of you, I don't know if you've ever seen like an ACL test or an LCL test before, but they did all the tests and stuff on my knee, and they were like, yeah, this is probably going to be an issue. This is probably going to be a problem. And I was like, dang. But I wonder how bad. I was still walking. Maybe it was because of the adrenaline. No, definitely because of the adrenaline. Like, I wasn't in pain. I wasn't crying. I wasn't sad. I was still like pumped up. I was ready to go. But it was like, bummer. I guess I can't, play this game. Maybe next game. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna need you to like immediately go to the doctor. Oh Lord. And so everyone's huddled around me. AJ, what's going on? AJ, what's going on? What's the deal? What's the deal? And they're like, oh, they're telling me I tore my ACL. Tore my ACL. And they're like, oh man, pat me on the back, pat my chest. I'm laying down. I'm not knowing what's going on. So I'm laying there, and I'm like, oh, the ACL, it's a good one. This is rough. And then my dad saying on the sideline, AJ, you good? And I'm like this. I'm like that. From what I know, I thought I'm good. But I ended up going to the doctor, and this is when kind of life took a different little shift for me. I get to the doctor, and they run through all my results. They run through my MRIs and everything, and they end up telling me, they're like, AJ, you end up tearing your ACL, your LCL, your PCL, and my meniscus. And I'm like, well, I'm hearing just a whole bunch of gibberish. Like, what is all that supposed to mean? But pretty much in short, like, even if you're not aware of like the body and everything of how the knee is functioning and what things are all involved fully in the knee, I pretty much blew out almost everything. The only thing that was pretty much left was my MCL, and it's probably still hanging on by a thread. I have no idea. But tore everything completely. Like, there was no like partial tears, just completely shredded. Your ACL is. I wish I had like a little rope with me, but it's like a long, like it'll look like a string, like a little rope. If you think about one of those like, I don't even know what type of material necessary that it is, but I want to say it's like straw. If you think of like those big, thick straw ropes that people would do like tug of war and stuff with, and if you were to cut one of those ropes, it would like flower out like with all the straw because it's not together anymore. That's how my ACL looked, just completely opened up like a flower, shredded. And then my LCL, if you think about like a rubber band and you stretch it out and you're holding it at that stretched position, it runs off of the entire like side of your leg or side of your knee. And if you imagine cutting that rubber band while it's in that tension, how it snaps and pulls to both different directions, that's pretty much what my LCL did. One part of it was in my upper thigh, and then the other part was in my calf. So they had to go and repair that. They took part of my hamstring to repair my ACL. So I went through a whole bunch of pain necessarily with that. So that put me out for a while, and the first thing, as I'm still sitting on the table getting the news from the doctor, is they go and tell me, and he's like, yeah, like this is it. You pretty much prepare for not being able to play anymore, not being able to walk the same anymore, not being able to run the same anymore. You're probably not going to be playing football anymore. So imagine going into like a 16, 17-year-old's mind, especially with them wanting to go play college football, to tell them that they're never going to play again, to tell them that they're never going to be a part of a program anymore. And mind you, like, I was getting attention from schools. I was getting attention from SMU, Notre Dame, A&M, or unless I said that already. Of course, West Point, East Texas Baptist University. There was a lot of other schools that were, pouring in that I did have attention from. Tulsa, I remember that. I can go through my old Snapchat and, flexing all of my letters and what are they called? Like the flyers and everything. If you played, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get all the mail and everything. Um, and to get shut down on a big year of my life, it felt like detrimental. Not felt, it was detrimental, like in that moment. But the guy that I was at, the doctor was ended up being like one of the school doctors, and I was hearing a lot of bad news. You know, people were continuously getting hurt, people were continuously getting surgery after they go from this doctor. So I ended up going back to the doctor that did my shoulder and my knee, which was outside of the school. A guy that I've known for a very long time. His name was Dr. McNutt. Shout out to you and thank you so much for everything that you've done for me. Um, you are so much appreciated from my end and from my family, I'm sure. Uh, I went back to him and I was telling him, like, you know, I'm devastated. I went through this whole process, and you know, for somebody that's almost blowing out their, not almost, yeah, almost blowing out their entire knee, you would expect a longer recovery, at least being over a year, to at least being stable and everything again. Um, they knew the desire that I had, and they knew the heart that I had, and they knew the how hard to push me because I've been with them for so long. The same physical therapist and everything as well, and they pushed me and they pushed me back. I mean, better than ever. I got back in 11 months and then boom, ready for senior year. Um, it was a crazy, crazy turnaround and a long time of hustle and grind. Just constantly in PT, constantly training, just making sure I can get back and get back healthier than where I was at before. After that moment, of pretty much just doing the training. Sorry, I was just checking to make sure my mic was on. After going through all the training and everything, again, before even to my senior year, I had received a call from a coach, and I was still getting some calls from college schools. And not to reveal like any names or anything, but I got a call from one of the coaches at the school. Ended up actually giving me a full ride scholarship to go play at the Air Force Academy, which was a crazy experience. I remember being at my buddy's house, we're playing 2K and everything, and I get a call, and he's like, "Well, you know, reviewing your film and seeing everything that you got, like we believe in the potential and we see what you got to offer." So to think from a kid who's only has his sophomore year highlights and has no junior year film. I mean, I put up 10 tackles or something my first game. And so they had like first quarter and a half of my first game, and that was it. So from a from a kid that's still hurt, that's still in recovery, and them to get an offer, it felt like I was still being acknowledged. It felt like I was still, you know, important in this sport. So it felt really nice. And then West Point came, and then East Texas Baptist came, and then Texas A&M Commerce came, and it was just that was coming. And I was like, man, this is something new, and it's happening. Senior year came along, and boo, flew through it. Went through that entire process. It was an amazing senior year. Love those guys. Still talk to those guys to this day. Fast forward and getting into the academy, football was a whole different experience, bro. Because now you're getting into D1 football, and now you're actually getting into big leagues. But I went to a military institution, so it was a little bit different of a process compared to a lot of other people who are going to D1 football. It was a different headspace. It was a different mindset. It was a different athletic ability. Long story short, you know, that school is there to breed out second lieutenants in the Air Force, not NFL players. So I remember going through basic training, and I went in at basic training for 225 pounds. I went in, you know, big Aki. I felt like I was the man, and then get out of basic training, and I come out at 193 pounds. So now I'm playing outside linebacker DN at 190 something pounds when you have offensive linemen almost 300 pounds. You can imagine how those things look. Um, but now I'm trying to go through the process of trying to eat, but the school's not feeding you properly. The school's not giving you meals. The school's not catering meals as they should. They're pretty much just throwing you out there in the fire, hoping you can find food. Throughout these episodes, I'll update you more and more. And on my podcast, I talk into it a little bit more about the whole nutrition thing, of how that process and everything worked. But it was just a difficult process. I couldn't eat like I needed. I couldn't gain the weight that I needed. School was a bit of a struggle at the time, and there were so many things that were just changing, and I had to make a change for myself. Towards the end of my time there at the academy, I end up going through our weight program, and we're doing shoulder press, and we're throwing up heavy weight that shouldn't be necessarily put on, and without teaching of proper form, I ended up tearing my rotator cuff. So ended up having another surgery again. So I got out of that school, did my surgery, waited, went to community college, then transferred to Texas Tech. Ended up walking on here, dealing with some injuries, and then different difficulties with some staff and stuff here. So then I had to come to realization that this time for football, necessarily, of me being on the field, is not necessarily for me. My area is more of guidance, because I've been able to see all the experiences of being injured, not being injured, being full ride scholarship, being a walk on. So I have like all the different avenues, and I want to help out all the other athletes out there who are going through injuries, going through any stress with coaches, going through any stress with the team. That's such an area that I have such a diverse background in. And I love to be able to continue to talk with athletes. I think it's amazing. But as I got older, continuously just living through life, there is a part of it that a lot of people just don't understand. Yes, there are student athletes. Yes, you have your athletes, wanting to go to the league, but you have to understand that every single one of us have a bit of that athlete inside of you. And that's what I think a lot of people just do not understand. That's why I like to highlight myself as a hybrid athlete. Like, I like to run. I want to get into swimming, not going to lie, but I can't speak on that because I haven't done it. But running, doing CrossFit, doing HIIT workouts, doing just bodybuilding workouts, still doing sprint work, like all of those different facets, even with calisthenics, there are so many different avenues of people still competing in a sport, but it's not just socially recognized like basketball, football. People do track and field, but it's a different thing. Like of cross country, it doesn't get as publicized and whatnot as much. Or CrossFit does get televised, but you only get televised when you make it towards certain levels. But everyone has that athlete inside of them, so don't knock yourself when I talk about athletes and student athletes. I will get specific when I talk about student athletes of being football oriented, because I will highlight it of being football oriented, and I will tell you a story specifically that I went through in football. But I don't want you to disassociate yourself because you didn't compete in football or something. Because I guarantee if you're watching this video, you are still active. You are doing something functionally for yourself. That's what athletes do, just at a higher standard. That's literally the only difference. Um, Went through that whole process, and going through that whole time of all the injuries, all the different coaches, the different teams, my mind started to take a hit, and I couldn't process. Then I went through identity crisis. Was I just a student? Was I just going to be a guy for work? Am I an athlete? I have no idea. I couldn't figure it out, and I got stuck. Um, that whole process was probably was the more difficult time than more of the physical things that happened to me, because I couldn't figure out like who I was and who I wanted to be. All I knew was football, so that's all I wanted to do. So it's a little bit different, and it was so out of my realm of normal that I didn't know how to operate. Went through that whole process, and then over time, blessed with the opportunity to live out in Miami for a while and doing some work out there, doing some training, doing some coaching, working in sales, being a part of that process of actually being able to connect with different athletes. But now in the area of martial arts, now there's another facet of something that I've learned, to be able to help people out in that area. Once I got into that space and got involved with some different people and got involved with some more active people, this is when a mindset flip kind of started for myself, of finding out who I was and finding out what things I was worth, finding out the actual processes of being disciplined, of actually being consistent, of actually doing things for me, doing the things that I want to do and that I love to do. And that was continuously being in fitness, but carrying it out for myself. Once I was able to meet those guys, they completely just changed my life. I ended up having that whole process. I lost 50 pounds, or currently now 53 pounds. I'm just kind of maintaining right now, but I lost 50 pounds in 3 months. And it was the craziest experience of my life. And it wasn't one of those things where I was counting down, this is the weight that I was losing. I was just so bought in on the life that I wanted to live. This was the person I wanted to look like. I wanted to be shredded. I wanted to go out in Miami and take my shirt off and walk around and be cool. Like, that's what I wanted to. I wanted to do what they was doing. And I was so bought in for it, because I got to do these things better for myself. I remember just feeling so defeated almost when working out with some of those guys, some of the guys that I almost look up to, and I felt like the fat friend of the group. And I was like, I ain't having that. I'm not one of them. I'm not gonna be one of those guys because I've always held myself up at a higher standard. So to now reach a different level and now being that person didn't sit right with me. I wanted to be able to compete with other people still. I wanted to be able to hold my own. I still wanted to be able to talk well with these people. I wanted to know the knowledge of them. I wanted to know what the training styles was like. I wanted to know exactly what their mindset was like so I can be at that level, but also teach people who were at the level that I was at so they can get out of that level. And now we're reaching up to the next phases. So it was a whole different process, and every single thing is stacking up more and more and more on each other. So my life has went through like many different phases. You can even talk about school. I was a pre-med major first. I was a biology major. Then I wanted to go into business. Couldn't make it into business because of all the struggles with schools. And then now I'm in communication. Now I'm getting my master's in communications. Now I'm the assistant director of public speaking. Now I run a business and coaching. I've been all over the place, but they all connect into one another. And throughout these process of the videos, I will document to you of how they have came together and show you kind of my day to day, the experiences that I went through, the things that I've gone through, the things I'm going through, and see the progression of my life. And hopefully you can take some steps and take some tips of what I've went through, implement it into your life, and hopefully skip some steps so you don't have to cross a barrier of failure. You can just hop over that hurdle. Your next area of barrier we're going to be going through together, or you're going to be going through your own different scenario, but something in there is going to be partly similar. And a lot of that area starts up here. And that's the area I can teach about. So that's, yeah, long story short, just to kind of about who I am. There will be more and more videos to come that'll kind of dive deeper into who I am. I hope you guys just enjoyed just seeing who I am, and I'm going to just process this whole thing over and over and over again. And I think it'd be kind of crazy to look back in a couple of years to being like, all right, this was my 23-year-old self living out in Lubbock, Texas. Now look where I am. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next video. And if you haven't already, check out Instagram. Instagram is I'm AJ White. It'll be in the description and everything as well. Check out the podcast. It gives you a more in-depth portion of who I am, just without the face. So if you're ever in a rush or ever in a hurry or just in a drive and you can't pull the video up, there are always things on the podcast as well. It's on every platform you can pretty much think of. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see y'all later. Deuces, y'all.